Andoni Ireola was always the choice for Liverpool, always the one that Hughes and Edwards wanted to bring into the club. Fact is that when they first started looking for a manager after Klopp announced he was leaving, which I think was probably a year earlier than they thought, Ireola just wasn't experienced enough. He'd done one season at Bournemouth at that point. Edwards was tracking him since Vallecano, so we knew him. But after one season at Bournemouth, you can't go from Bournemouth to Liverpool. You just can't do that jump in 1 year after you finish 12th. So instead, they look around at the market and they see who else is out there. Shortlist comes down to, based on the data, Xabi Alonso or Arne Slot. So while they did approach Xabi Alonso a couple of years ago, that approach I don't think was for a long-term manager. That's looking for someone who was able to take that team that Klopp had left, which they knew had probably 1 year left in it as a collective group, to go and win something with that group. So they approach Xabi Alonso, they approach Arne Slot. Both of them are perfectly good choices. Xabi Alonso's coming straight off a league title win in the Bundesliga. Arne Slot's coming straight off a league title win in the Eredivisie. But in both these cases, I think these are managers that they've looked at as these guys can get the best out of the squad that Klopp has left now. And not necessarily that these are the guys that we want in the next 5 years, 10 years. So Alonso's turns us down, decides to stay at Leverkusen, makes it clear he wants the Madrid job. Sound. And instead Arne Slot becomes the choice, which the data probably led us to anyway. And obviously it's a good choice because he goes on to go and win the league, which is an amazing achievement. Don't get me wrong, definitely not trying to downplay it. But I think in terms of what the club were looking at, in terms of what Edwards and Hughes were looking at data-wise, that was probably expected. I think a league title was the expectation for that team going into that season, especially when you consider the drop-off that both Arsenal and Man City suffered. Or Arsenal wasn't a drop-off as such, but a failure to progress to the level that they expected to. So when we go and post 84 points and win the league, that's probably in line with what we were expecting to, given that we got 82 the year before in what was considered a disappointing season. The tough part then becomes that the transition has to happen. They know that team's not going to stay around forever. You got Salah's 33, Van Dijk's 34. You got other key parts of the team all aging. Luis Diaz has been asking to get out of the club for ages now, and we're finally going to let him have that. The core of the team is coming apart, and you have to start transitioning to the next unit. That isn't what Slot was hired for, but I think the reason that they wanted him, rather than someone else at that point, rather than Ireola at that point, is, honestly, it keeps Ireola's name clean. That's, I think, what it comes down to. So I think they were fully expecting this to be a tough season. Maybe not quite as tough as it was, but I think they're fully expecting this to be a tough season. So I think they were genuinely backing Slot to stay in the job into next year. I think that was the plan. Even though we've come fifth, I think results-wise, we're probably all right with it, to be honest. It's not like we were happy with this season. Don't think Edwards and Hughes were happy with this season, but I don't think they were so annoyed about it that they were going to jettison Slot. One, because they kind of put him in a position where they knew it was going to get worse. But for the long-term good of the club, it had to happen. Two, there were the mitigating factors around, obviously, Diogo Jota's death. I don't know how much that impacted later in the season, but certainly early in the season, it impacts the conditioning of the players because pre-season was so disrupted, and it probably impacts the mentality of the players when, there's reports we've got his jersey still hanging up in the dressing room. You got the fans clapping at the 20-minute mark every game. I think everyone was certainly still feeling that into the first few months of the season at the very least. So I think they're willing to accept those mitigating circumstances. They're willing to look past that stuff and say, okay, yeah, you didn't hit, the highs of the previous season, but we didn't expect you to. You still got Champions League. You did just about enough. And you're the guy who's here to manage a transition as like a safe pair of hands, not necessarily to excel with this team, but you're the guy who's here to manage us going through this period where, yeah, results might drop off, but the long-term trajectory of the club is up, the average age is coming down, the wage bill is coming down, and so we can accept a Champions League finish and not a title challenge for a couple of years. And I think that was probably what Slot's remit was. I'm sure he didn't see himself that way. I'm sure the club didn't describe it to him as that. But that's what I think it is. And even, obviously we see Mo Salah coming out and making posts, but very clearly directed at Arne Slot's style of management. Some people disagree. I don't know how we can at this point. Very clearly directed at Arne Slot. And even that, I don't think that itself kills Slot as a manager. Because honestly, getting Salah out the club is probably seen as a bit of a positive, to be fair, from the director level. You got a guy who's 33 years old. He's got another year on his contract. He's getting paid over £400,000 a week. He's eating something like 15% of the club's entire wage budget is just going to Mo Salah. When he scores 29 goals in the Premier League winning season, you accept that. That's who he is. That's what he is. But as soon as that level drops just a little bit, he's not worth that money anymore. And so even when Slot goes and falls out with Mo Salah, I don't think that ends Slot's job here. I think the board would look at that and go, probably had to happen. No, I think what killed Slot instead is his relationship with the club and the relationship with the fans of the club. Frankly, he failed to build one. Even winning a Premier League title, there was just something, there was a disconnect somewhere between him and the fan base. I can't even necessarily put my finger on where that came in, but every successful Liverpool manager has a close relationship and an understanding of the club with the fan base. It goes deeper than just what's happening on the field. I never felt that way with Slot. I don't think anyone did. And I'm not saying that what happens on the field doesn't matter. Obviously it matters. And part of how you build a relationship is what happens on the field. Obviously everyone talks about, we got to get back to heavy metal pressing like Mo said. I don't necessarily think it's about heavy metal football or anything like that. But it is about passion. It's about aggression. And you got none of that. Second season Slot, even first season Slot for quite a lot of it, to be honest, you never got that oomph that we all expect, and I heard someone talking about it saying, well, we don't need attacking football, we don't need pressing because Rafa never played like that. Rafa didn't play like that, that's right. We played very structured, defensive mostly. But what did we do? We're still super aggressive, still chasing after a win, rather than passively just letting the other team have the ball. Sitting in at Anfield playing against friggin' whoever. I mean, Nottingham Forest come and beat the shit out of us. And we're just kind of standing around accepting that they've got the ball. We played Chelsea at the end of the year. We haven't won in 6 games. They got more possession than us at Anfield. That stuff's not acceptable. So honestly, I think the fan base, that relationship with the fan base is what's killed it. And I don't know whether that failure came in because of we're not seeing what we want on the field. But we've been in that situation before where we've not seen what we want on the field and we still back the manager. Even during Klopp's terms, we had a couple of years during Klopp's tenure where we didn't necessarily like what was happening on the pitch, but we liked him. And we had a relationship with him. And so we continued to back him. We knew eventually it would get back to a level where we wanted. I think Slot had just this inherent failure to connect with people, whether that was his players or whether that was the fan base. But I think the fan base is the one that really kills him. It just, to me, it just felt like he didn't understand the club. He just didn't get what we were about. And that's fine. He's a foreign manager. He doesn't necessarily have to buy into the culture. But I think if you're going to be successful at this club and you're going to keep your job long term, you do have to. So you can't still be living in the Netherlands. You can't, or at least visiting your family every other week in the Netherlands. Like, move your family to Liverpool. If you don't want to do that, Liverpool's not the job for you, frankly. Like, there's failings on both sides here, but if you're not willing to commit, a decent part of your life to being about Liverpool, you don't belong as the Liverpool manager. It's just the way it is. So for me, the firing of Arne Slot probably was a decision that was made during a postseason review, maybe a little bit before that, but I think there was an ongoing process. Edwards, Hughes, whoever else is involved, Mike Gordon, whoever else is involved in that decision-making process. I'm sure that was a fairly late in the season decision, because I think where it went completely off the rails is Chelsea. It is getting booed off the field at Chelsea, and probably the club looking at it and realising this guy isn't able to fulfill that job of being the safe pair of hands anymore. He isn't able to fulfill that job of being the guy who's in place while we transition to become the new club, to become the new team with the new focus, the new players. He is here to do that, and he can no longer do it. So they look around again. Is there an opportunity anywhere else for someone else to be the manager of this club, or head coach, however they want to label it? I think it's now manager, head coach. And what do they see when they do look around? They see that Ireola has overperformed again at Bournemouth. It's 3 years in a row of doing way better than anyone would have expected, with this year coming on the back of losing 3 starting defenders, his starting goalkeeper. He actually lost 4 starting defenders because Adam Smith lost his job. So Jimenez came in. So he changed the entire back line, mostly with people who were already at the club. The goalkeeper, and then he loses Antoine Semenyo. And on the back of all that goes on an 18-game unbeaten run. Do I think that was enough for the club to go, okay, yeah, let's go get Ireola now? No, I still think that they looked at it and said, he's not quite ready yet. He's still a year away. And so Ireola knows my long-term job is Liverpool. I know Richard Hughes were mates. My long-term job is Liverpool. But I might not be able to get here from Bournemouth. I might not be able to do it from Bournemouth. Even if I go and win the Europa League, what's that really mean to anyone? Who gives a shit? Like, English clubs win the Europa League every year now. They win the Conference League every year now. Who cares? So Ireola's looking at it. He's going, well, they're going to give Slot 1 more year. They're going to finish their transition. Maybe 2 more years. They're going to finish moving to become the team they want to be long term. I got to go and find something else where I can go and become an established enough manager that I can get that higher. I can become that guy that Richard Hughes can say, yeah, we're bringing him in because this is an elite manager. So he has to go and join a club where he can prove that. So, Crystal Palace came out. He's never interested in Crystal Palace. But Leverkusen and AC Milan, he went to those interviews. Those are interviews he was there for, or at least AC Milan was. So he was looking at that seriously. Now, if he goes to AC Milan, does 2 years at AC Milan and wins a Serie A, now we're looking at a world-class manager, right? So I think ultimately the only decision that the club are left with, maybe 3, let's say 3 decisions the club was left with, is stick with Slot, who's unpopular with the fan base, unpopular with the players, playing poorly, and failing to manage the transition to the new team. Not an option. Out the window. 2, try and look for a short-term manager, because still, I think in their brains, Ireola is the one. He is the one long-term. So try and find a short-term manager. Is Xabi Alonso a short-term manager? No, if Xabi Alonso comes in, Xabi Alonso is the manager for a long time, you would expect. Even though, honestly, if I'm putting my thoughts out there, Alonso's not a Liverpool man. He's a fan favourite. He's a former player. He handed in a transfer request at Liverpool. You can say, Rafa, Barry, and all that. I don't care about that. He handed in a transfer request. He's not. He's not dedicated to. He's not. He doesn't love Liverpool. He's not. Someone who bleeds Liverpool. He's just a former player who's really good. And then we approached him again, and he turned us down. So I don't buy all the Xabi Alonso because he was going to be so powerful with the fans. They didn't want it. I think they didn't want him because, one, he would have been a long-term project manager in a slightly different direction than where we wanted to go. And two, he's already kind of proven himself that if something better did come along, if Bayern Munich go and say, hey, Xabi, we want you over here, he'd probably fuck off. So that's Slot off the table. It's Alonso off the table. The only other option that they're left with is we need to go and get Ireola now. I don't think that's what they wanted to do. I think they were trying to hold off that because I think they did want to bring him in as a winner. I think they did want to bring him in, or at the very least as someone who's managed at the top level. So if that had meant letting him go to AC Milan and go and be over there for 2 years, I think they were comfortable with that. Because then you're bringing in AC Milan or Leverkusen's manager. Let's say that he's completed at the Champions League level. Maybe he's made a run. Maybe he's won a Serie A, something like that. At least a Coppa or something like that. And then you can say, yeah, we've got this trophy-winning manager who has overperformed in England before, been one of the hottest young prospects in football, and then gone and backed it up with a big club. And now he's coming in. This guy's the Don. This guy is in charge. He is the boss. He's going to be here a long time. Liverpool is going to be the club he's synonymous with. This is Ireola's club. But unfortunately, this has had to happen a little bit too early, I think, because Slot failed so badly in pretty much everything he did in the second season that he got himself fired and there were no other options. There's just nothing else the club were comfortable doing. Then we're going to have to go and get Ireola now. So, what do I think? I think Ireola was always the guy that they wanted. There was never a point where they thought that long term it would not be him. I think this is an appointment that's been made years in advance. Even look at the players that got signed. Every player that got signed is an elite presser. Say what you want about Wirtz. If you think Wirtz isn't good at pressing, you just didn't watch him at Leverkusen. He's the best presser in the world. If you think Isak can't press, you didn't watch Newcastle. If you think Ekitike can't press, you didn't watch Frankfurt. These are players who are elite pressers. Can they do elite pressing when they're playing in slot system where midfield doesn't back them up? No, obviously not. No one can. No one can do that. But put them in a pressing system. These are elite players at that. This side is going to be a fantastic pressing team. I think where the hesitation in bringing Ireola in is just because half the team is an elite pressing team and the other half of the team hasn't transitioned yet. And because we're still in transition, Ireola, there's a slight risk now with Ireola. Not only that he's not had that elite level management experience to kind of fall back on, kind of use as evidence if things don't go quite right, that he can say, hey, things are going to get there. He doesn't quite have that to fall back on that like a Jurgen Klopp did. And obviously the risk is exaggerated by the fact that there's still quite a lot of transition that has to happen. There's still a lot of changes that have to happen in this team to make it an elite team again. And so I think the club wanted to avoid having Ireola's name attached to this transitioning unit. I think they wanted him to come in to an established team that had already gone through this kind of rocky, tough period. But ultimately, everyone makes plans, and sometimes it doesn't go quite right. Ireola developed faster, I think, than we thought he would. He turned that Bournemouth team into a much better team than I think anyone thought was possible. Except for me, I said that they would finish fourth. They came sixth, close enough. And not only did he do that, but Slot's failure just increased the need. So ultimately, Liverpool ended up with the manager that they've always wanted anyway. It's always been Ireola. Everything about this man, to me, screams Liverpool manager. Long-term Liverpool manager. I think this is just a year earlier, or 2 years earlier, than the club actually wanted to do it. And so I think it's not necessarily going to be that he swans into the club and we go and win the league next year. And I don't think we're going to be set up for that. And I don't think we're meant to be. I think we need a little bit more patience than we necessarily want to have. I do think it'll be better than last year. I don't know really how it could get much worse. I do think it'll be better. And I think his first aim will be, obviously, win the fans. That's what I said at the start of the video. You need to win the fans. Win the fans, and then, start enacting that style. If you do that, the points total will follow. I think we'll be disappointed with anything less than high 70s, I would think. If he does that, he's off to a good start. But if that drops into the mid-low 70s range, I don't think we're going to panic. I don't think this is a situation where he's going to be on the hot seat. I think the club's just going to have to be extra patient now. But it's been a debate for years. Like when Guardiola and Klopp were at Liverpool and Man City, and even you had, Carlo Ancelotti was in the league, Antonio Conte was in the league, all these elite managers were in the league. Everyone was looking around going, who's next? Who are the next people through? Who's the next world-class coach? And people gave ideas like Graham Potter and guys who just never were at that level. But Liverpool knew. Michael Edwards knew. They identified that early. He was scouting him at Vallecano. They knew who the next elite manager was. It was Andoni Ireola. They've just had to move on him a little bit earlier than they wanted to. That's it. But ultimately, Liverpool have a man in place who they believe is one of, if not the top managerial prospect in the world.